Have you ever tried to love while hiding? Have you ever felt the emptiness of being with someone, and yet not being with you? Perhaps you're waiting for love to happen, but your soul is still on the run, escaping what one feels, escaping what one carries, escaping oneself. Rumi wrote, "Don't move like fear, be love in motion." But how can this love exist if its essence is still locked behind walls of pain and unhealed silences? The truth is that there's no way to love someone when you're still trying to escape what you feel inside. And that's what almost no one has the courage to say. You can even attract people. You can even live out stories. But without inner presence, everything becomes a repetition of absence. Because whoever is running away from themselves lives waiting for someone else to bring back what they lost along the way. Affection, validation, belonging. But no amount of love is ever enough when the void you're trying to fill is yourself. You can feel it, can't you? That feeling of always being almost loved, almost seen, almost complete, but always returning to the same place. The emotional emptiness that arises when you abandon yourself. And perhaps you've learned to be too strong, too quiet, too caring. But deep down, it carries a fear. If someone truly sees me, will they still love me? That's where the escape begins. When you decide to show only what is beautiful, to be what they expect, give them what they ask for, and forget what your soul truly needs. But the soul does not remain silent forever. She whispers through the nameless sorrow, from a weariness that just won't go away, the loneliness that appears even when you are surrounded by people. And perhaps today is the time to listen, because if you've made it this far, it wasn't by chance. The soul recognizes when it is in the presence of truth, and this truth begins now. Because no matter how much you try to hide it, the pain you feel, the absence that dwells within you, the fear that paralyzes you, it all has a name, and it only starts to change when you have the courage to face it and not run away from it. You're not here by chance. This video is a mirror, a bridge, a call from your own soul. So before continuing, take a deep breath and write here in the comments, "I'm ready to stop running away from myself." This phrase may seem simple, but it's the beginning of the truth. And if this topic has already touched something deep within you, leave a like now. This shows that you are present, listening with the heart, and subscribe to the channel, because this journey of healing, truth, and self-love is only just beginning. Now, let's go deeper, because there is an invisible pain that almost no one sees, and that's who we need to talk about. A pain that doesn't bleed, but suffocates. That doesn't scream, but silently shapes every choice you make. Have you ever tried to love someone who you don't even know? Have you ever felt that you love too much, and yet you remain alone? Have you ever wondered why your relationships always end the same way? With the same emptiness, the same feeling of abandonment even when the person's name changes. The truth is that many don't realize it, but they're in a relationship where one of them is still emotionally absent. And sometimes that missing person is you. Perhaps the problem was never the other person. Perhaps you're still running away from yourself, running away from what you feel, from what you carry, from what was never said, but burns you inside. You learn to be too strong, too rational, too understanding. But at some point in that effort to be accepted, you cease to be whole, and the price of that is extremely high. You end up loving in pieces. You give yourself away without having settled in yet. He keeps saying yes so he won't be rejected. He stays where he's not seen, just to avoid reliving that old pain of being left behind. But what you may not have realized yet is that this cycle doesn't end there. It only ends when you decide to stop abandoning yourself. Many people believe they suffer because they love too much, but it's not love that hurts. What hurts is the constant attempt to remain invisible to oneself while begging to be seen by the other. And this repeats itself, like a secret pattern. You give yourself away too quickly, wait too long, and delude yourself too much. But the heart remains empty, not because there was a lack of love, but because there was a lack of presence. Have you ever caught yourself saying, "I just wanted to be enough"? Have you ever wished you were the kind of person someone looks at and chooses without hesitation? Have you ever thought that maybe, if things were a little less intense, a little easier, a little lighter, they would work out? And that's where the biggest self-deception begins. Changing who you are in order to be loved. But love that demands you hide is not love. It's neediness. It's fear. It's illusion. Rumi said, "You were born with wings. Why do you insist on crawling through life?" And crawling in this case means living by shrinking yourself to fit into small spaces. It's accepting emotional crumbs and calling it connection. It's like begging for love while you don't truly love yourself. Perhaps you were conditioned from an early age to believe that you need to earn love. That needs to be proven, conquered, convinced. Perhaps the abandonment you experienced has turned into such a deep void that all you do now is try to fill it with the presence of others. But no one can inhabit the space you have emptied of yourself. You feel it, I know. That feeling of always being almost there, almost enough, almost whole, but always coming back to the same point. The silent loneliness of those who love with everything, except truth. And this is where the invisible problem lies. You are not alone because of a lack of love. You are alone because you haven't yet allowed the most important love, self-love, to happen. Not that forced love of motivational phrases, but the love that looks at your pain without fear, who accepts their shadows without punishment, one who honors their own history with compassion. Most people aren't looking for love. They are searching for someone to ease the pain of no longer recognizing themselves. And that's why so many relationships fail, because you're not looking for a partner. You are looking for a mirror that will give you back something you have lost of yourself. But this mirror is not the other one. And you. It's when you look at yourself, see yourself, and support yourself. It's when you decide to stop running away from what you feel and finally start to come back home. The escape is subtle. It happens when you laugh when you want to cry. When you say everything is fine even when you're falling apart inside. When you pretend not to care just so you don't get hurt again. But as long as you're running away, any love will be a battlefield. Because no one can love with their feet running away. Perhaps you've never heard it said in those exact words, but today your soul needs to listen. You are not difficult to love. You're just trying to be loved without being present. And presence is everything. It's what changes the way you present yourself, communicate, and position yourself. That's what separates conscious love from disguised neediness. That's what transforms, "Please choose me," into "I choose myself." And that's why this video exists. Because the time has come to stop looking inward, to understand that the love you want begins with the courage to stop running away. Now write it here in the comments. I'm returning to myself. That's all. That phrase has power. Because when you write it, you make a statement. And declaring it is the first step towards transformation. You said you want love. You said you're ready. You said you're tired of running. But is that really true? Or is it possible that deep down, there's still a part of you that's trying to hide? Not from the world, not from people, but from yourself. Rumi said, "Your job is not to seek love, but to remove all the barriers you have built against it." And the question remains, how many barriers have you built? How many walls have you erected in silence? How many invisible pacts with fear? How many promises made to pain, such as, "I will never give in like this again. I will never let them truly see me again"? You want to heal, but you're still protecting yourself from healing itself. He wants to be loved, but keeps his soul locked away. And the most curious thing is that he does it without realizing it. Running away from yourself is an ancient mechanism. It begins in childhood when you realize that being authentic comes at a high price, that showing what you feel can result in rejection, that being vulnerable exposes you to loss. Then you learn. You learn to swallow your tears, to smile out of obligation, to please in order to be accepted. And this pattern becomes a way of existing. The problem? You carry this into all your relationships, and she begins to love with fear, with breaks, with absences. You think you're giving yourself away, but what you're offering is a character, someone you created to survive, not to connect with. And there is no real connection where there is no truth. This is the spiritual root of your suffering. You don't suffer because the other person doesn't love you. You suffer because you still try to receive love without being present in your own soul. And the soul feels it. It senses when you betray yourself, when you say yes, when you mean no, when you pretend you don't care, when you accept crumbs because you believe that's what you deserve. The pain you feel is just your soul wanting to be seen. She doesn't want any more masks. She doesn't want any more false promises. She wants to be seen, heard, honored. But to do that, you need to stop neglecting yourself. Self-abandonment is when you compromise your truth to keep someone around, when you remain silent to avoid conflict, when you diminish yourself to fit into small relationships, when you silence the pain thinking that ignoring it will make it go away. But the pain doesn't go away. It accumulates. And sooner or later, she screams. And when she screams, she does so through her body, anxiety, insomnia, crises, or through the mind, guilt, doubt, fear, confusion, or even through relationships, estrangements, rejections, repetitions. That's when you start asking yourself, why does everything go wrong for me? But perhaps the right question isn't, why does it go wrong? And yes, where did I abandon myself? Because yes, abandonment hurts, but self-neglect corrodes. And the most dangerous thing is that it disguises itself as love. You believe you are giving of yourself, but in reality it's begging to be seen. He's trying to win the other person over when he should be rescuing himself. Have you ever said, I give myself completely, but do you know the whole story? Or is it that you give yourself away with so many missing pieces, expecting the other person to fill in what you haven't even recognized in yourself? That's why everything always ends up back in the same place. You change partners, cities, stories, but the emptiness remains, because the emptiness doesn't belong to the other person. It belongs to you. It's the space your soul occupies when you stop listening to it. Rumi also said, you have to keep breaking your heart until it opens. And perhaps that's what's happening now. Perhaps these words aren't hurting you, but opening you up. Perhaps this discomfort you feel now is just the resistance of pain being touched by the truth. And that's okay. There's no need to run away from it. You've spent your life trying to escape pain. And where has that led you? Perhaps now is the time to do things differently. Stop, to breathe, listen, to return. Because no matter how beautiful the love you seek may be, it will never flourish upon the ruins of your own abandonment. You need to come back to yourself, recognizing its parts, sitting with your pain, not to punish, but to embrace. You are not broken. You are in process. And the truth is, your soul never left you. She was just waiting for you to stop running. If these words resonated with you, write them in the comments below. I recognize my soul. That's all. No explanation. No defense. Just presence. This phrase is a sign that you've started listening to yourself again. And that is already the beginning of everything. You recognized your soul, and that changes everything. But now, you need to go further. You need to touch on what almost no one dares to say. Because what no one told you is that loving isn't about surrendering to the other. To truly love is first about finding yourself, inhabiting yourself, sustaining yourself. As long as you believe that love comes from the outside, you will continue to mold yourself, explain yourself, empty yourself. But real love begins when you stop trading your soul to fit in. Have you ever realized how many times you've had to become someone different just to be accepted? How many times have you silenced your own truth to keep someone around? How many times have you distanced yourself from your essence just to fit into stories that diminished you? This comes at a cost. And that cost is you. You get lost. You start forgetting who you were. Your light fades little by little until only a distorted reflection of what you once were remains. And behind all of this is the belief that one will only be loved if one negates oneself. But that's a lie, and one of the worst lies, because it's the lie that sustains your suffering. Rumi wrote, "The wound is where the light enters. But as long as you run from the wound, you will also run from the light." You need to understand that the pain is not against you. She is not your enemy. She is the calling. Pain is your soul asking you to return. It's your truth pulling you back to your center. But you resist. Because it hurts to look, it hurts to feel, but it hurts more to keep running away. Running away doesn't protect you. It distances you from yourself. You might even find someone who loves you. But if you're still disconnected from your own essence, that love will never be enough. It will be fragile. It will be insecure. It will be fear disguised as affection. And once again, you'll find yourself in that place, trying to explain yourself, trying to be understood, trying to convince someone to stay. But love that needs convincing is not love. It's attachment. It's a lack of resources. It is the absence of one's own presence. What nobody tells you is that there's a place inside you that can't be touched by anyone but yourself. A sacred space, untouchable. And it is in this space that your key resides. The key to emotional freedom. The key to true love. The key to the silent healing you've been searching for in other people, in other stories, in other beginnings. But that key was never in the other one. She was always where you least wanted to look, inside your own pain. Yes, it is within pain that the path opens up. It's not comfortable, I know, but it's real. You need to stop running. You need to stop begging for affection. You need to stop hiding behind versions of yourself that don't represent you. Light enters through the wound. But for that to happen, you need to leave it open. You need to have the courage to feel what you've avoided for so long. Because every time you run away from pain, you also run away from healing. Every time you are silent, you also silence your soul. Every time you mold yourself to please others, you also distance yourself from the love that could be true. This is the hidden key. You don't need to transform yourself into anyone else to be loved. You need to remember who you are, and to have the courage to be, even if it's scary, even if it pushes some people away, even if it requires you to walk alone for a while, because it's better to walk alone, being whole, than to get lost in crowds trying to be accepted. And if you feel it's time to stop running away, if these words have opened something up inside you, write it in the comments. I choose the light of my wound. This phrase is not merely symbolic. It is a silent decision. And silent decisions are the most powerful. You chose the light of your wound, and that takes courage. But it is now that everything begins to reveal itself more clearly, because perhaps today, you are experiencing exactly that. Perhaps you are in a relationship where you need to hide parts of yourself to be accepted, where you can't say what you feel, you can't show vulnerability, you can't exist fully without causing discomfort to the other person. Have you ever noticed how certain relationships demand silence even without a word being said? How your truest self gets pushed aside, suffocated by this need to be what others expect? What begins as love often transforms into an invisible game of masks. You start by smiling, saying yes, offering your best, and without realizing it, you forget yourself, forgetting what you like, what you think, what you need, because the fear of losing is greater than the desire to be whole. Or maybe you're not even in a relationship anymore. Maybe you're always searching for one, always hoping someone will come along and save you from yourself, someone to bring relief from the emptiness, calm from the anxiety, meaning to the loneliness. But no one can save you from what you yourself refuse to look at. And that's the cycle, an invisible cycle, subtle, but one that repeats itself like a silent emotional pattern, marked by the need to mold oneself, to adapt, to disappear in the name of love. Before you molded yourself to be loved, you made concessions, you gave up space, you toned down your intensity so as not to scare anyone away, you lowered your needs so as not to seem demanding. And in the beginning, it seemed to work, because there was attention, there was presence, there was an illusion of security. But then comes the silence, the indifference, the doubt, and with it, the old feeling of being alone even when you're next to someone. That's when you started to realize those who truly love don't run from their own shadow. Because loving isn't about romanticizing the other person's light. It's also about accepting the parts that hurt, the unhealed traumas, the fears that still live there. And that is only possible when you've already had the courage to sit with your own darkness. You might even be reliving it now without naming it. Perhaps that relationship where everything seemed too intense at the beginning, and then turned into absence. Perhaps that bond where you gave more than you could, hoping the other person would see something in you that even you couldn't yet see. But what no one explained to you is that all love born from neediness ends in pain. Every bond built to fill an inner void ends unstable. Every act of giving without presence ends up becoming a demand. And the pain doesn't come because the other person was cruel. The pain comes because, once again, you put yourself second. It comes because deep down you expected someone else to fill a space that is your responsibility. When you depend on another person to feel that you exist, you are not loving. You are running away. And this escape smells of romance but tastes of emptiness. Perhaps you've already experienced a cycle where everything seemed promising, but gradually revealed itself to be frustration. Where the initial connection was intense, but the depth never materialized, where you felt you were struggling to hold on to what the other person never wanted to hold on to. And in this type of relationship, the pain doesn't come from the end. It comes from the resistance to accepting that once again you were trying to save someone so you wouldn't have to rescue yourself. You were searching for love, but deep down, you were searching for yourself. And the more you ignore this truth, the more you repeat it, because the pattern only changes when consciousness changes. As long as you continue to offer your soul in exchange for emotional crumbs, the universe will continue to mirror your absence of self. You need to remember one thing: love is not sacrifice. Love is not hiding pain to maintain the connection. Love is not disappearing so the other person feels comfortable. Love is presence. It is truth. It is space to be, and that space needs to start within you. Now that you know this, write it in the comments below. I no longer hide for love. This phrase carries weight, and it has power, because it's a choice, a silent declaration that the cycle ends here. You said, I no longer hide for love. And perhaps in saying this, something has stirred within you, a part of you that has long awaited to be heard, a part of you that grew tired of feigning strength when all it wanted was truth. Because there comes a moment, and perhaps that moment is now, when you realize you can no longer continue in the same way. You cannot love someone while you are at war with yourself. You can try. You can even disguise it. You can even build connections, stories, expectations. But without inner peace, love becomes a battlefield. Rumi said, return to yourself, even if you have to go through fire. And sometimes, that fire is looking at what you've avoided for so long. It's about stopping being distracted by the other person. It's about interrupting the search outside. It's about having the courage to sit in the middle of your own chaos and ask, who am I? Besides the pain that taught me to hide? This is the beginning of a shift in consciousness. It's not a magical moment. It's a process. That's when you start to feel discomfort not as punishment, but as a guiding light. It's when the emptiness no longer overwhelms you with despair, because you understand that it's showing you how far you've drifted away from yourself. You ran for so long. You tried to erase the signs. And now, here it is, faced with a choice. Keep running away or go back. Go back inside. Go back to the part of you that already knows. Because deep down you always knew. You always felt there was something more. But I didn't know where to begin. And now you know. Healing begins in silence. Not in the silence that hides, but it is in the silence that it reveals. When you stop running and finally listen to yourself, you know that pain you try to avoid? She's there for a reason. She's saying, hey, look at me. I'm yours too. Because it's impossible to live life halfway. It's impossible to love halfway. It's impossible to heal by denying what is part of your history. You can keep blaming others. You can keep saying that nobody chooses you, that nobody understands you, that nobody sees you. Or you can do what almost no one else does. Choose to. What if choosing isn't an act of ego? It's an act of truth. It means, I no longer expect anyone to come and save me. I return to myself, with all that I am. From that moment on, something changes. The pain will still be there, the fears too. But now you're not fighting them anymore. Now you invite them to talk. And in that space of inner listening, you begin to rebuild yourself. You start to feel that maybe, just maybe, you were never weak. You were just tired of carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders while ignoring yourself. You begin to see that the intensity they told you to control was just your soul trying to be felt. And she realizes that what they called too sensitive was just her truth wanting to breathe. This is the point at which consciousness awakens. Not because everything becomes lighter, but why do you stop fighting against what you feel? And it's finally starting to allow it. Allow yourself to be. Allow yourself to cry. Allow yourself to make mistakes. Allow yourself to return. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to be ready. You just need to be present. Because the love you seek is not in perfection. It's in presence. It's happening right now. Here. Now. Where for the first time in a long time, you stop running and listen to yourself. The soul doesn't shout. It whispers. And perhaps, at this very moment, she is whispering to you, I'm here. I never left. I was just waiting for you to come back. If these words touched a forgotten space within you, write in the comments, I'm returning to myself. Not because everything is resolved, but because now, You're ready to truly begin. You said, I'm coming back to myself. And in this return, a new listening process begins. It's not about listening to the world, to others, to external demands. It's listening to what has always existed silently within you. Listening to the soul. Perhaps what you're feeling today isn't exactly loneliness. Perhaps it is the absence of oneself, within oneself. An absence that cannot be filled with distractions, with the presence of others, with noise. An absence that only dissolves when you stop, when you are silent, when you finally hear what you've been avoiding for so long. The soul tires of pretending to be strong, tired of carrying the roles that the world has imposed on me. It's exhausting to look okay when you're falling apart inside. Tired of smiling to hide the tears. Tired of just surviving when you were born to truly live. The deepest pain is not the one that screams. It's the one that keeps quiet. It's the one that drags on through the days dressed in normality. It's the one that nobody notices, but it slowly consumes you. Because you learned that showing pain was a sign of weakness. That feeling too much was a problem. That being sensitive was wrong. But what if I told you that everything you've been taught to hide is precisely where your strength lies? What if your sensitivity isn't a flaw, but a portal? A portal to access parts of yourself that are locked away by fear, shame, or an old desire to be accepted at any cost. That silence you carry, it's not emptiness. He is full of unspoken truths, full of stories that no one has heard, full of tears that you learn to swallow in order to appear strong. But the soul does not desire force. She wants the truth. She wants presence. She wants someone to finally look at her and say, I see you, with everything, with the pain, with the trauma, with the flaws, with what is still unhealed. And that someone needs to be you. Because as long as you keep waiting for someone else to come and rescue you, you'll keep sinking. As long as you place your peace in the hands of those who don't know your struggles, you will remain in conflict. As long as you depend on the presence of another person to feel whole, you will live in constant absence. The silence you feel today, perhaps it is sacred. Perhaps life is calling you back inside. Perhaps it is the only language your soul has found to express itself. Enough pretending. Enough hurting yourself. Enough abandoning yourself. You don't have to put up with everything anymore. You no longer need to carry everything alone. You no longer need to prove yourself. You just need to allow yourself to. Allow yourself to fall. Allow yourself to feel. Allow yourself to say, I can't take it anymore. Allow yourself to stop. And in that pause, discover that the world doesn't collapse when you allow yourself to be human. That there is no shame in showing vulnerability. There is beauty in cracks, because that's how the light gets in. It was Rumi who said that, remember? The wound is the place where the light enters. But that light only enters when you stop running away, when you let go of the masks, when you stop protecting yourself and start taking care of yourself. Taking care of yourself is not selfishness. It is a sacred act. It's about you acknowledging that your pain deserves space, that their story deserves respect. May his soul deserve rest. And perhaps right now, at this very moment, you are feeling that. A different kind of tiredness. Not physical, but existential. A weariness of pretending, of running, of enduring. A weariness of remaining silent when everything within you screams for presence. So listen. Listen to this silence. Because he's not punishing you. It's guiding you. It's leading you back to where it all begins. Inside you. And if this silence is screaming today, it's because your soul no longer wants to survive. She wants to live in truth, to live fully, live in connection with who you are, and not with what the world expects you to be. Write it in the comments below. I listen to my silence. This phrase is a choice, a key, a reminder that you are, at last, beginning to hear what you have tried to silence for so long. You said, I listen to my silence. And perhaps in saying that you opened a door, an inner, invisible door that invites you to a place few dare to enter, the sacred space of encountering who you truly are. And when that encounter begins, a calling is born. A calling that is not loud, not aggressive, not urgent. It's subtle, it's intimate, it's profound. This is what's called the inner self, the one who whispers while you're trying to stay in control. That touches your soul in the most unlikely moments, that which appears in the emptiness of the days, in the silence of the nights, in the ruptures that break you on the outside, but rebuild you on the inside, because you've come this far, and that's already part of the calling. You can't love when you're afraid. There's no way to create a real bond while the soul is still clad in armor. Love requires the courage to persevere, to be, to sustain. It's about allowing yourself to be seen by yourself, before expecting to be seen by anyone else. Perhaps you're beginning to realize that what you've always sought outside is exactly what you refuse to see within. Perhaps everything you wanted to hear from someone, "I accept you as you are, I see your pain, you don't need to pretend," are phrases your soul is asking you for right now. Not for listening from the outside, but "I want to hear from you," because the delivery doesn't begin with the other person. The surrender begins when you stop bargaining away your truth in order to be loved. It begins when you accept your shadows, without trying to change them in a hurry. It begins when you understand that you don't need to fix yourself to be worthy of love. You just need to find yourself. And it is in this encounter that love finds you too. It is when you sustain yourself in silence, in pain, in truth, that life begins to respond differently. Not because the world has changed, but because you change the way people live. You've spent too much time trying to control everything, wanting to predict, avoid, protect. But true love, the love that transforms, the love that heals, is not revealed through control. It flourishes in delivery. That commitment is not giving up, but surrender. Surrender to one's own truth, to the soul itself, to the natural flow of what needs to be felt before it can be resolved. Giving up is not a sign of weakness. To surrender is to make space. It's about letting the pain speak. It's about allowing the wound to reveal what is still hidden. It's about stopping running away from yourself, and to say, with an open heart, "I am here, with all that I am, without haste, without masks, without shame." This delivery is frightening, because she demands presence. It requires patience. It demands your whole self, but it also liberates. Break free from the cycle of scarcity, the addiction to being chosen, from the desperate attempt to be loved even if it costs one's own soul. You're not here to be half-hearted. He's not here to adapt to shallow stories. You are here to remember. Remember that there is nothing wrong with being profound, sensitive, intense, and genuine. Remember that your pains are gateways, not burdens. Remember that your essence doesn't need approval. It needs presence. And that's what the inner calling does. He takes you inside, to the dark cave where no one else goes. But where does its light begin? He invites you to abandon the persona you've built to survive, and go back to being who you were before you learned to hide. Because true love doesn't require false versions. It demands the courage to be whole, even injured, even if imperfect, even in progress. So perhaps now is the time to look each other in the eye and say, "I'm ready to stop running away. I'm ready to stay. Not because of anyone, but for you." If this feeling of surrender began to happen within you while listening to these words, write it in the comments below. I choose to remain within myself, right from the heart, because every word has the power to seal a decision. You said, "I choose to remain within myself," and at that moment something inside you broke or opened up, because there is no healing without rupture, and there is no true healing without surrender. And when you finally surrender to your truth, to your pain, to your presence, the soul responds. She doesn't respond with screams nor with euphoria. She responds with silence, with that kind of silence that doesn't frighten, but reveals. You start to feel that there's something new in the air. Or perhaps it's not new. Perhaps it's old, very old. A reminder of who you were before you learned how to protect yourself, before hiding, before falling silent. And then you listen. That phrase kept whispering inside, reverberating like a mantra. There's no way to love someone who is still running away from themselves. It hurts, I know. It hurts because she doesn't talk about the other person. She talks about you. Talk about the times you betrayed yourself. There were times when she knew she was losing herself, but she stayed. There were times when she wanted to leave, but was held back. There were times when she wanted to scream, but she smiled. You may have done it out of love, but it wasn't love. It was fear. It was an absence. It was about survival. And what no one ever told you is that running away from yourself doesn't free you from pain. It only prolongs the suffering. It simply repeats the pattern. It simply turns your life into an endless cycle, where you always end up at the same point, feeling like something's missing, and that something is you. Because every external absence that hurts too much is a reflection of the internal absence you didn't want to see. You may have blamed others. He said he was rejected, ignored, replaced, forgotten. But deep down, you had already given up on yourself before, and that's the hardest thing to face. That's why this phrase resonates so much. There's no way to love someone who is still running away from themselves, because she exposes it. She tears it. She no longer allows you to shift the blame. She gives you back yourself, and that hurts. But it also liberates, because if the problem isn't the other person, then the solution doesn't need to come from outside either. And that's a relief, because now you understand. There is a way back. There is a way to stop it. There is a way to stay, and that changes everything. Going back is not regressing. To return is to come back to your inner home, to your soul, back to its point of origin, to the place where everything began to fall apart, and where everything can be rebuilt. Stopping is not giving up. Stopping means breaking free from the artificial acceleration that made you believe you needed to be okay all the time. It's about breaking with the logic that you will only be loved if you are healed, resolved, and happy. To stop is to say, I accept myself now, just the way I am, even without having all the answers. And to stay, to stay. Staying is the bravest thing you can do to yourself. To stay is to resist the urge to flee. It's about getting through the discomfort. It's like holding your own hand in the midst of pain. It's about supporting oneself. It's about loving yourself even when the world seems blind to it. It's about being a companion for their wounded inner child. It's about being a comfort to the soul tired of pretending it's okay. Rumi said, "What you're looking for is looking for you. And perhaps you are exactly what you've been looking for in everyone else. You've been seeking care, but you haven't been taking care of yourself. He has sought presence but is absent from himself. She has been searching for love, but she gives herself without truly settling in. And now you begin to see, it's possible to start over. It is possible to return home. It is possible to stop running away. You no longer need to pretend to be strong. You might get tired. You might cry. You might not know. And even so, it can be worthy of love. There is no idealized version of you that deserves more acceptance than the exact version that is breathing right now, with their pains, with their silences, with their shadows, with its true story. Because love doesn't demand perfection. Love requires presence. And presence is only born when you have the courage to look at yourself without filters, to see oneself in one's entirety, without condemnation. It is in this place that the cycle begins to change. That's when you say, I choose to stop. I choose to return. I choose to stay. And these words are not promises for the future. These are seeds planted in the present moment, seeds that silently begin to germinate. You begin to see that love isn't something you need to chase after. Love is what is born when you stop running away. Love is what blossoms when you choose to stay. Love is what emerges when you decide to stay, even when everything inside you wants to disappear. And then, something changes. Perhaps slowly, perhaps discreetly, but it changes. You start to feel less guilty for feeling too much, less shame for breaking something, less need to explain. Because now, you know that your intensity is prayer, that your pain is sacred, that their story deserves to be told, that your silence is not weakness. It's a gateway. You learn to walk in silence. But now, you can walk in truth. If that echo still resonates within you, write it in the comments. I'm going back home. This phrase is its symbol. It's your seal. It's a reminder that you finally decided to stop running. If you've stayed this far, it wasn't by chance. It was your soul saying, stay. And if something within you has been touched, if these words have resonated like a silent mirror, then this journey is yours. And it's only just beginning. If this video spoke to your soul, subscribe to the channel now. Each new piece of content created here is another step on the path back home. A path of silent healing, of true love, of reconnecting with one's own essence. And leave a like as a silent sign that you were touched. Not for me, but for yourself. For everything you already know but had forgotten. And now, he's remembering. And if you've made it this far, you also deserve to take the next step. Click on the video that's appearing on the screen right now. It's a continuation of this conversation with your soul.